That's what a lot of fish under a dock look like. They're everywhere. But we're gonna go find some walleyes on paddletails. Not at the dock, out in the bay. There's one right there. That's a walleye, I think. Pinned it to the bottom. You see that? My net is stuck. Here we go. Here we go. That's a better catch. What is up, fisher people? Today, talking about everything plastic paddletail fishing for walleyes. We're gonna talk about when to do it, how to do it, what to use to do it, gear-wise, and then we're gonna try to catch a few fish doing it. That's the plan, if everything goes off without a hitch. So first of all, when to do it? Well, it works fairly well with the plastics for pre-spawn walleyes, but then once they go through the spawn, there's a period where, I don't know what that was, it wasn't a walleye. There's a period where they're not feeding super heavily and they need some time to recuperate from the spawn, and then eventually the jig and minnow bite kind of picks up and the live bait thing goes for a while, and then you need temps to warm up before they get super aggressive to hit something like a plastic usually. I find that like once water temps hit 62, 3, 4, 5 degrees, I usually have a week or two where that's really good before I start switching over to bottom bouncers. And in fact, when it does reach that temperature, especially sometimes in the afternoons, the plastics can be even better than a jig and a minnow. They seem to bite them more often, and you can also work them a lot quicker. You can cover a lot more water. You don't have to rebait all the time, et cetera, et cetera. So when the fish get more aggressive and the water temp warms up a little bit, that's the best time to use them, especially when they're still shallow. You're still looking for fish that are in like 2 to 6 to 8 feet of water. If they start to get 10 foot and deeper, it starts to be a little more difficult to use that method, and then bottom bouncers become more effective, crankbait, trolling, that kind of stuff. But when it first starts going, I usually use like an 1/8 ounce and a fairly small paddle tail. This is a Berkeley flicker shad. That's a VMC Moon Eye jig. And the reason I do that is because it's a little more aggressive than a minnow, but it still has a fairly slow fall rate. Whereas if you go to a big, massive plastic and a 1/4 ounce, that's a lot more for, you know, snap jig and darty kind of stuff. They're not quite hitting that sort of thing yet. I still want something a little subtle, but not quite as much as a jig and a minnow. And then a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm looking for spots, nice shoreline flats, points, that kind of thing, where I can cover some water, slow trolling around the shoreline or the structure and casting into those spots as I'm slowly trolling. If you find a good pot of fish, then you can spot lock and beat up on them and see if they keep going. But you're looking for active fish. It's a good search bait technique. So staying on the move is a good thing with these sorts of things. In terms of how to do it, there's a ton of different ways you can work the bait. So again, like I was saying, initially, I tried to be a little more finessey with it and work it kind of like a jig and a minnow. So you get it out there and you let it hit the bottom, and you can just completely work it like a jig and a minnow. You can just give it a pull, wait for it to fall. There's some weird fish back there. It's not a walleye though. I don't know what these are. They're interrupting my thing. You can give it a pull, just let it fall until it hits the bottom, and you're just feeling the vibration of the paddle tail in this case instead of what you would do with the minnow. So just pull it enough to feel that vibration. And that can be enough to get bites. And then if they're really going after it, you can try to ramp it up a little bit and be a little poppier with it and see if they'll still bite it that way. And you're still looking for that thump bite when the thing's hanging midair most of the times. They might pick it up off the bottom, but typically you're gonna get a thump. And if you feel that thump, that's a fish that just engulfed it from behind, smacked the back of the jig, and that's where you need to set the hook. Now the other thing you can do that I don't do a lot of, but I know a lot of people that do, they're called swim baits for a reason. So you can swim them. You don't have to constantly pop and jig these things. So you want to get it down to the bottom, preferably to start with. And then you can just kind of do a slow retrieve, and maybe every once in a while just kind of like dance it up. But you got to know how fast because the faster you reel it, the more it's going to lift. So you got to be really precise about where in that water column you want the bait to be, and maybe every once in a while let it fall and touch bottom to make sure you're down there. Because you don't want, if you're in 8 feet of water, you don't want to be in a foot of water right under the surface, unless you're fishing for pike or bass or something. If you're fishing for walleyes, you still need to keep it down there a little bit. That's also a good way, like if you're, I don't do this a lot at Sakakawea, but if you're at a place that has a lot of weeds and you know that the walleyes hide in the weeds, and say there's, I don't know, you're in 12 feet of water and the weeds come up to 6. If you can dial it in to just hover that thing and just tick the weeds every once in a while, that's a good way to work a swim bait over top of weeds to catch walleyes. I'm very much a jig fisherman with a paddle tail. I don't do a lot of swimming with it, and I haven't got into that so much. So my cadence is usually this kind of thing. And then if the fish are really going and I'm getting a lot of bites, I start amping it up a little more to see if that triggers more bites or fewer, and then I can always pull back. But you're always kind of playing with speed and cadence to see what they're going to be willing to take. There's one right there. That's a walleye, I think. Oh, wow. Whatever this is, it's kind of large. I might have a good fish right out the gate here. Oh, it got off. How unfortunate is that? Dang it. Oh, it just came unbuttoned. And my line's quite frayed. I'm gonna have to cut that thing. Shoot. It's a nice fish of some species that I don't know for sure, but felt like it could have been a good walleye. It could have also been a pike. So always check your line for frays after a pike or after a big walleye or after something else. And if you need to cut and retie, cut and retie. So while I'm doing that, let's talk about the gear, right? So if you're doing a more finessey thing, I use the same rod that I use when I'm jigging minnow fishing, which is a 6'9" or a 7-foot medium light fast. And when you're using that, the bait doesn't move as much as what you pull the rod because the rod's still got some give to it. If you're trying to do something that's a lot snappier, a lot more of a snap jigging technique, then you can use a medium rod instead of a medium light, and that'll move the bait a lot more and make it a lot snappier under the water when you're trying to get more of a reaction strike that way. I still use 10-pound braid and a 10-pound mono or fluorocarbon leader depending on what I'm going for. Mono is going to be lighter and a little floatier when you're going for subtle. The fluorocarbon is going to sink a little more and let it be a little snappier. Fluorocarbon also protects a little more against pike abrasions and rock abrasions and stuff like that. So yeah, and I still like to use the high vis Power Pro braid so I can see my, like sometimes even with the paddle tails, just like the minnows, you'll see the line jump and you won't see or won't necessarily feel the bite, especially if it's windy out and stuff. Let's see, we covered when to do it. When the water temps start warming into the low to mid 60s, especially first thing in the morning. Like if you see 65 in the afternoon, but it was 58 to start the day, you know, you're just looking at a lot of surface temp climbing. It's not necessarily the right situation yet. But if you get out first thing in the morning at 62, 3, 4, 5, especially by afternoon, like a lot of times I use minnows in the morning, paddle tails in the afternoon. So that's when, how, get your different cadences. Always play with your cadence. Always try to figure out what it takes to get a fish to bite. And once you do replicate it, the gear, you can go with the finessey medium light. You can go with a little snappier medium rod. And then you just got to catch fish. Then you got to rely on side imaging, 360, live scope, whatever it is that you need to use to find fish to the side in shallow water. Because this is predominantly a shallow water technique. Covering water, you're not going to be able to sit over top of fish. So you need some sort of method, either electronically or just finding good wind-blown shorelines and points and trying to find the fish with your rod. You start catching fish, then you know you're in the right area, right? Electronics are great, but you don't necessarily need them to find fish. You can find them by fishing for them. I really wish that one fish would have stayed on. That would have made a really sweet deal. I can still catch more fish hopefully today, but that felt like a large fish. So does this, feels decent too. I want to keep this one on for sure. I don't want to lose two of them. Still filming the intro and the how-to of this video. I'm going to guess this to be an 18 to 20 inch walleye. That's my guess. He's really dogging though. Feisty walleye. Not even that, he's just really strong. 17 probably. Maybe only 16. But we got a fish while we were talking, which is always a lot of fun. And oh, by the way, he pinned it to the bottom. You see that? Sometimes, like a jigging Rap, they'll just trap that thing. That's why he felt like he was so heavy. And maybe the first fish was the same way. It's hard to say. But yeah, there's your paddle tail fish result. 10:15 in the morning. Hopefully we can catch a ton more of these. I was seeing some good ones on the side imaging. I'm gonna try to get you some side imaging shots of fish as I see it. And try to catch as many as possible in a few hours before the storm. I think we might be into some fish here. I haven't turned the camera off yet. 12:20, 12:30, 12 minutes of video. This, if you didn't pin it, this one actually is bigger than that last one. What do we got? Going under the boat, huh? Going under the boat. Try not to horse him too much. Don't want to pull a hook again. Boy, they are feisty this morning. It's not huge, but it's a nice fish. They just don't want to give up. Man, okay. A little bigger, 18. The funny thing is, I pull up to the spot. Oh, it's a tagged fish again. I pull up to this spot, just trying to get away from the boats. It's a spot that's been much better. I just wanted to get out of the way, and seems as though there's fish here too. What's our tag? 67718 is 18 inches on the nose. 67718, 18 inches. You can report those tagged fish to Game and Fish in North Dakota. If you just Google North Dakota tagged fish, the first link should be that appropriate one for reporting tagged fish. That helps them out a lot when they're doing their surveys and their studies. So I'd highly recommend reporting all your tagged fish that you catch. I don't know if I'm going to blow my whole GoPro battery here in one take or what we're going to do. But as long as we're catching fish. This is almost turning into that Devil's Lake video where I just let the camera roll and started crushing them. I think I just found another spot that I can fish tomorrow while all the boats are sitting down there. Is it going to happen again? It appears not. All right, I'm going to go look for some more fish. Try to get some side imaging shots. Maybe try to catch a big one if we can. I got one on here that's trying to get my motor. I'll go to spot lock. It's grabbing all kinds of fish out to the side here. So I think it's a decent place to be. I'm just gonna lock it in here and stop trolling. Catch this fish. Yeah. And once the paddle tail bite gets hot, it's just a very effective method of catching walleyes out here in Lake Sakakawea and plenty of other places, because it's so efficient when they're biting it. You don't need bait. You can cast them and work them a little faster and cover some more water. It can make a big difference over live bait at certain times, especially now. There were so many fish back there. I'd like to think I can get another one spot locked, but sometimes it seems like moving is more productive. And I don't know if it's just because the movement of the boat combined with what you're doing slightly changes the speed with which you work the lure, or if it's just that change in angle. So like you're working it this way, but the boat's moving one way, so it's kind of sweeping around the shore. I don't know if there's something to that, but there are times where like I spot lock, cast, nothing, start moving, and boom, get a fish. Kind of the same thing with the jigging wrap thing, where sometimes casting jigging wraps works a lot better than just working in vertical. Sometimes trolling in vertical works a lot better than straight vertical. Like, I don't know exactly why those things matter, but they seem to matter sometimes. So if you're ever struggling getting bites with fish, casting, try moving and casting and just see what happens. Some of it's just the fact that you get through that many more fish. So if it's a day where they're not all biting really aggressively, you'll pluck out the one, or there's something little still in there with the walleyes. You'll pluck out the one or two out of the group that want to bite, and then you'll just keep moving and keep getting the most aggressive fish along the way. Ooh, ooh, that felt good, because it's a snagged drum. Jeez, I snagged one. Oh no, he is in the mouth. He looked like he was snagged. I did clean one of these the other day. Haven't tried it yet. Apparently, drum aren't that bad, as I've heard from several people. So I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. It's in my fridge. And drum, I've caught the occasional carp on a paddle tail. I've caught the occasional sucker. Drum are more likely to hit something than one of those. Boy, this feels nice. This is actually a walleye. Keep the tension on, but don't overhorse them. And always reel while you're going back down. Keep the tension. Medium tension, keep that slight bend in the pole. And you'll keep a fish pinned. Something about, that's a nice fish, but they're just really feisty today. They're fighting a lot harder than a lot of days. Maybe it's the paddle tail. They're all feeling like tanks. And I can show you how much this fish wanted it. That is choked. That's when you know that the bite is on with the paddle tails. Hard to miss those fish. Hard to miss a fish like that. Let's get some more. Sometimes you can do the whole like just trolling and working it, like long lining it behind the boat thing too. So a lot of times if I do a cast, by the time the lure gets fairly close to the boat and back behind it, especially if I'm marking fish in the depth that the boat's in, I'll just kind of pop it underneath the boat, and I've gotten plenty of fish to do that. Again, that typically requires some stained water, some wind, that kind of thing. If you're in a super clear lake and you're under 10 feet of water, you're not likely to get fish underneath the boat if it's calm. But if you got some wind or some stain and that kind of thing, it can be a very effective technique. I never want to work my boat where I think most of the fish are. If I think most of the fish are in 3 to 5 feet of water, I don't want the boat in 3 to 5. I want the boat in 8, 10, whatever I got to do to reach it from the outside. But sometimes you get to a point where there's a lot of fish in 3 to 5, but there's some fish in 6 to 8. So if you start to graph fish underneath the boat, or every once in a while, just give it a try, drag it underneath the boat, slightly behind the boat, and see if you can get some fish that way. Can be very effective still. There we go. Oh, that one got off too. Dang it. I tried to work him around the other side of the boat. That was probably dumb. That might have been a mistake. The things you do for cameras. Ugh. There we go. Wind kind of changed on me, so I had to move spots a little bit. But I found some more fish. That one included. See, when you're fishing a spot, you definitely want to keep looking at that screen. If you stop seeing fish in there, especially if the wind shifts or something, it's time to go find some more. A good spot won't last forever. Nice fish. Nice.
I don't know if you heard it, there's no fish around here.
There's no fish in here? I'm gonna catch this one, I think. If I can land it. Not a huge one. What's that? I did, yeah. You could have joined. You did so well yesterday, though, you wouldn't need to.
Yeah, we did have a good day yesterday. Thanks to you guys.
Yeah. Have you used plastics at all yet today?
I just tied one on, and that
Okay.
was our third fish.
Yeah, that's all I've used. I'm just doing a paddle tail video, so
Oh, are ya?
that's all I've used. And they were hitting it pretty good. I got out at like 10 o'clock and ran over there.
Yeah.
So I missed like 3 of them after I had them hooked. So I don't know if they're just kind of biting it funny or what the deal is, but yeah.
Just hopping a paddle tail back, guy.
Yeah. Not working it too different from a minnow, just kind of maybe a little more aggressively, but not a lot. I didn't even bring any bait today. I was like, this is the video I'm making. If they bite it, great. If they don't,
Yeah, right.
so be it. This might be a more serious fish. Ooh. It's acting more serious. Certainly acting more serious. Try to spot lock here. It's kind of rubbing the line right now. It's definitely bigger than what I've caught so far. Oh, my net's stuck. My net's stuck. My net is stuck. Here we go. Here we go. That's a better caliber fish. That's a little better quality. That's one of the ones I was looking for today. always good to make a video, period. But it's nice to get a little better sized fish for no other reason than to get a nice thumbnail. Why don't you perk up for the camera a little bit, huh? There you go. See you, buddy. If you liked the video, of course, click the button to say so. Think about subscribing to the channel. Think about supporting the channel on Patreon if that's something that you're interested in doing. For some extra perks and some benefits, I'd appreciate it a lot. It would help me out a lot. It already has helped me out a lot, so thank you for all of that. Matter of fact, the guy I was talking to earlier when I caught that, I think the last walleye I had on was one of my Patreon subscribers, which was pretty cool, and helped him get on some fish today. So nevertheless, think about that stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll be giving you some more videos down the road for sure. Talk to you later, fisher people.